Welcome to the third edition of World War III. And World War III, once again, is not going to be fought the same way that World War I or World War II was fought. In fact, World War II wasn't fought the same way that World War I was fought. And that we're seeing that we're in World War III. World War III, from my perspective, started on October 8th. October 7th. World War III started October 7th, 2023, when Hamas retaliated against Israel for their years and years of military occupation, for all of the human rights abuses that occurred underneath the Israeli regime and Israeli administration. And we started to see how the United States supported Israel. Now, many in the evangelical community will say, oh, well, we're supposed to back Israel because that's what God tells us to do. And the question is he talking about Israel as the political state, the political entity, or the people of Israel, meaning the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Question is, well, not even the question. Fact is that the United States is in trouble. The fact that we've bombed Iran, and we can say that it's for all these other different reasons, but in all actuality, Iran was a much greater threat to Israel than they were to the United States. And the fact that the United States, underneath the President Trump administration, decided to attack Iran while Iran was at the negotiating table just further shows the international community that the United States cannot be trusted underneath Donald Trump, that negotiations mean nothing, and that all negotiations is just a way to buy time. We also saw similar activity in Qatar when Israel bombed the it bombed an embassy, right? It bombed the embassy that was housing the negotiators from Hamas. That despite there being negotiations, that you can be attacked as a result, that the United States and Israel will not allow for you to negotiate. They will attack you when you're supposed to be negotiating. When you're negotiating, there's usually a ceasefire. There's usually a matter of goodwill. But the fact that we have decided to go ahead and bomb and carry out this quote unquote military action, and we've declared war. We've declared war on without going to Congress. We're seeing that President Trump is saying, look, I'm the president and I have executive war powers, and that it was necessary to do this. He hasn't briefed Congress. He hasn't let Congress know. Congress doesn't have a sponsor. The American people are too broke and too disinterested in their government to really be paying attention and to really hold their government accountable, because it's Congress that we've elected to represent us and to hold the executive accountable. Oh, it's not happening. And it's not happening. And while we watch young men and women in the military, while we watch them put their lives on the line for a government that isn't concerned about them, that will put them in harm's way, that will put them in danger. And yet, one of the most disrespected people, one of the most ignored populations in America are our veterans. That the traumas that they carry, that the injuries that they face, that it almost seems like it's for nothing. That is for nothing. That how does attacking Iran keep Americans safer? How does it keep Americans safe? And many Americans, I hope that we're looking at this, that this is just this is the bounds, the lengths that this administration will go to cover up the Epstein files. It's just sad, 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 sad. When I look at what has gone on with Israel and Palestine and what they've done to the Palestinian people, the the tens of thousands of children that have been killed and maimed and traumatized, the tens of thousands of women that have been killed, maimed, and traumatized, the tens and thousands of men that have been killed, maimed, and traumatized. We went after Hitler for what he did to the Jewish people, and we believe that we were on the right side of history. What about now? Is the American government going to be on the right side of history? That we can bomb Iran, we can bomb Iran for what they did to their protesters and what they did to thousands of their own people, yet we're saying that it's okay for Israel to do that to the Palestinian people. The American government has no integrity, unfortunately. And this administration has shown that it has no integrity, that we're not honest negotiators, that we're not fair deal makers, and that we have no integrity. That we lost all moral authority and all moral footing and all moral grounding. The more that we allowed for Israel to do what it was doing, the more that we allowed for our the hawks in our military, the hawks in the Defense Department to do what they're doing, the more that we allowed for a Venezuelan leader to be kidnapped, that now we have shown that we will kidnap world leaders, we will kill world leaders, and we will say that is not a declaration of war. I think that the United States, we're violating the golden rule, do unto others as you would like done unto you. So that if it was done to us, we wouldn't consider that an act of war. We most certainly would consider, if you kidnapped our president, if you killed our president, an act of war. Look at the people who have made assassination attempts against our president, that they have been tried to the fullest extent of the law. But when the United States does it, it seems as if the international community cannot hold our president, cannot hold our country accountable. We have shown that we have seen that the UN, and particularly the UN Security Council, is a bunch of spineless people who have no power, or that the UN has no power, has no real power, and that the only real power is that might makes right. So the nuclear armed powers, the nuclear armed party, China, the United States, Russia, France, the UK, the members of the, let's see, China, US, Russia, France, UK. Yeah. The 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. It's a shame where we're at right now. It's an absolute shame. Absolute shame. Once again, I said World War III started October 7th, technically October 8th, 2023, when the Israelis really launched their main offensive. Started that day. And we've been expecting for World War III to look like World War II. And it's not, because it's going to be regional conflicts, but major conflicts just in regional areas. So you see the conflict that is currently going on right now with Iran is attacking for real attacking. They're not playing. Like when they went after Iran has launched drones and missiles. They've struck US embassies, they've struck US military bases, they struck the Palm, the Burj Al Arab in the UAE, like when you look at in Dubai, right? In Dubai, that they've struck these targets, and there's a lot of rich and wealthy people, and the hotel that they hit, that's like the 5-star hotel in Dubai, where a bunch of wealthy people go. So Iran is letting everybody know that it is not safe. But it reminds me of something that Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said, is that the United States is a destabilizing presence in the Middle East. And everywhere that there is a U.S. military base or major U.S. presence, Iran is striking them. So they've struck Qatar, they've struck Saudi Arabia, they've struck Jordan, they've struck the UAE, they've struck all these different places, and they're hitting real targets. So it's no longer this thing about showmanship between the two parties. It is for real war. And then now also with the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, you'll have conflict in the Middle East. And then you'll see China say, oh, well, this is a perfect opportunity and perfect time for us to go after Taiwan. And we'll be involved in that conflict. And we'll hopefully have Japan as a proxy to help prevent that from going on, from Japan and South Korea. But then You'll have the Pacific conflict. Then you'll have the conflict that's going on in Afghanistan, but the conflict that's currently going on in Pakistan. Then you'll have the conflict that's going on in the South. And it will almost seem like the United States is fighting a war on the Southern Front, right, which was going to be close to home, fighting a war on the Pacific Front or the Asian Front, fighting a war in the Middle East, and then being lightweight involved, or not necessarily lightweight involved, but involved in the Russian and Ukraine conflict. This president said no more. He felt that he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize, and yet none of his actions are showing that. He said, if I can't have the peace prize, then nobody can have peace. Shame, shame. Then you'll have all the people in the United States that are saying like, oh, well, MAGA and all the Trump supporters, you guys voted for this. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. I can tell you that most Trump supporters and most MAGA voted for the release of the Epstein files. I wasn't one of them. I didn't care about the Epstein files. They voted for the release of the Epstein files. They voted for no more new wars. But unfortunately, Donald Trump is no different than any other president of lying. Just Donald Trump will make it seem like he changed his position and that it was absolutely necessary. Hogwash, man. Hogwash. It's just like now, how do you, as an American citizen, how do you benefit? How do you ensure that you benefit from everything that's getting ready to go on? Defense stocks up 1,000, I'm telling you. And that's really where we need to be thinking about. Like, we've seen that if you don't have money, if you don't have resources, that they will treat you like a pissant, peon, peasant. That's what they will treat you. They will treat you like a triple P, a pissant, peon, peasant. Damn shame. Damn shame. But just to know that I foresaw all this, and I talked about it earlier, talked about it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, about where we were at, that this is the end of diplomacy, that there will be no real diplomacy, at least between the United States and anybody else, because everyone in the international community is seeing like, yeah, you say that we're negotiating, but you bombed everybody that you said you was negotiating with. Shame, shame. It's Dr. Jamar Montgomery with another broadcast. Love you guys. Talk to you later.